guys, welcome to another edition of the AMT cast. This is a little bit different from our usual episodes. This is a sort of a one-shot sort of thing that we're doing. It's just a sort of a making-of episode. We wanted to talk about what we do behind the scenes and what you guys kind of hear and how our kind of week goes about before we get to upload. This is coming at the head of a period where we're possibly thinking about switching to a bi-weekly format, but we're not quite sure yet. So it's an interesting time. And we've just dealt with a lot of things, but it's been 7 episodes that we've recorded now, so hopefully there's enough to talk about. It's going to be today just me and Chris, your editor and composer for the show, and myself, Adam, as always, your DM. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing all right, Adam. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I have a cup of coffee in hand. I'm ready to go.
I just had my tea like 20, 30 minutes ago, so I'm still on that tea high. But
so what have you been up to today, Chris?
Today I've been, spending the last few hours just editing episode 7 a little bit ahead of schedule. It's as we are recording this now. It is today's Saturday, right?
It's Saturday the 12th of August.
Yeah. So episode 6 will not be going up until Monday the 14th. Whereas, and of course, by the time anyone is listening to this, it will have already come out. And then episode 7, assuming everything went to plan, will not be out until the 21st, the Monday a week following. But, and I mean, I guess you'll know because you're going to be hearing this afterwards. Right. I wanted to kind of, basically there is a piece that I wrote for actually the puzzle that one of the puzzles that we solved in episode 7, which was a very thought-based episode.
I tend to. I'll explain more about puzzles. I want to. Yeah, this is really interesting to me.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about like your what your thought process going through the campaign. But anyways, yeah. So I was composing a piece for that puzzle, and then something just kind of clicked. Like I think I really started to find the identity of how I wanted the music to help tell the story that Adam is kind of spinning.
My insane tale.
I wanted to sort of stick the landing. Like this is episode 7 is going to be sort of the conclusion-ish to kind of a cliffhanger almost to like this arc, which definitely I think in this I guess technically the 4th arc really, but the second multi-episode arc is the first time that we all kind of really clicked in. Like I think we're starting to really find the identity of the show. I don't know. Everything feels a lot better. Like, I talked about with you, and I don't know, maybe listeners have noticed, episode 5 and even 6 too were a lot less edited, and a lot of
you actually kept in a few moments where we said we were going to cut,
right? And
that we were going to cut,
and that was a conscious decision. At first, I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of stupid." Then I listened to it back, and I'm like, "No, because you don't. If you're listening to this because you just wanted to hear an epic story, you listen to an audiobook of, Lord of the Rings for the 3rd time or something, right? Like, this isn't a podcast.
And we want to give you that. We wanted to give you that feeling. Sure, like, we're not denying that at all. But at the same time, I think, Chris has a really good point with the...
Yeah, we want to go back and forth. We want to humanize. Like, we
want you to be a part of the conversation at the table with us. We don't want you to feel like, we're just making a story.
Exactly.
That you have to listen to and you have to be quiet during.
Yeah.
And you have to write a 4-page paper afterwards, like about why the curtains were blue.
And I expect you to submit that in the comments for a grade.
It will be Chris grading it.
Yep.
Unless he has a business trip to go on, in which case Warnke will be taking over as the substitute teacher, but he will not be doing anything that he's required to do.
No. And he's not even required to do anything to begin with, so...
Yeah. That's very true.
But yeah, so we wanted to switch back and forth between those kind of moods, and that is great because one, it gives it character, like, so we're not just another D&D podcast. Like, you can kind of get the idea that we're just four good friends that know each other in real life, just playing D&D together. And it also takes a lot of weight off of me, and I don't know, maybe I'll still be editing by this point, or whether Stewart might take over the editing. We're discussing that right now.
Yeah, we're times are changing. We're trying to figure out just to, I guess, side rail this a bit. We're trying to figure out the best way to distribute the workload, because right now It's pretty intense.
Yeah, it's kind of rough. This has been an everyday thing for me so far. Between the editing and the composing, and actually the biggest reason, if I didn't have to do any composing, I just had to do editing, that I could do a fine job and it would be okay.
Right.
As it is, I'm kind of, because the editing has to happen, there has to be a minimum standard for editing, and the music can be an afterthought. That's kind of how it's been so far, and that is not good, right? That was because my main motivation, because I wanted to practice my composition after school.
And just to be kind of, I guess, fair, to give a clarification, Warnke and Stewart weren't too sure about this being like a production thing at first.
That's mostly my fault, I think, because I wasn't.
No, but it's fine. It was. I mean, they were up for it, but it was like for them. It was just at first, we were just trying to do a D&D thing because we weren't even sure if it was going to go up. We weren't sure if this was going to be worth posting anywhere at all.
Yeah. So, and I guess to continue with that, it's my fault because I was like, oh, hey, let's do this thing, and since I was kind of a lot of the impetus behind it, that it would make sense that I would take the workload. And since I said this was the main motivation was to practice my composition, I also stand the most to gain, so I'm totally okay with having the most workload. It's just,
I mean, I gain some. It's gonna be an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And you also have equal to probably my workload. I honestly have no idea how much work it takes, but I imagine a lot.
I like to. I don't want to make. Okay. Sorry. You don't have to cut this. I try to spend a lot of time working. So my week goes like this. It's mostly 7 days of just me panicking, figuring out what the fuck I'm going to make the episode about. No, but really, it is several days of me really just trying to figure out a good plot hook, a good story. Which part of this tale do I want to tell? I have a lot of things that have been set up since episode 1, and I'm proud of that. But I had a lot of things that I didn't set up initially, or didn't mean to set up, and then they ended up being really good setups.
Yeah, and that, more to your credit, I know obviously you set up a lot of stuff, but because of the nature of D&D, that it's a fluid story, and because, we're all just fucking trolls that are giving you a hard time, how well that you're just responding to things. For the listeners, I added some stuff, I edited out some of the ums and ohs. There are points where you have to kind of think what we're doing, but you're comparatively just lightning fast. The amount of times that you've just had to 180 because we I don't know how obvious this was. I tried to edit it so it was less so, but at the end of episode 4, we were originally, I guess, supposed to fight Ivan, and then Jimothy was just you know what, whatever, fuck it, and then Adam just pulled something out of his ass that made it kind of make sense, and it sets up Ivan as this new character that might come back later. Who knows? I actually don't,
I try to keep... Okay, here's the thing. So because of Chris's relationship as the editor and the composer, I cannot hide everything from him. I wish I could as a player. I really want this to be... So as a game designer and as a writer, I like to make sure that the experience is really freaking enjoyable for people that are experiencing the story. I want this for Chris to feel amazing and new and exciting and fresh. I hate when I have to spoil things to him, but at the same time, I'm gonna bottle all this stuff up and eventually just explode if I don't tell someone, because I'm literally losing my mind here. It's very interesting to. I'll get more on that later, but there's a relatively, compared to other parties that I've had to deal with and had to be in charge of. You guys are not the worst by far. I had an entire. Okay, this is a funny story. I had a group. And Stewart was actually a part of this group. He was not involved in this shenanigan though. I had a group, and I love this group. I tell this story all the time. They were at a store, and there was this kid that was running the shop, and for whatever freaking reason, the paladin hated this kid, just wanted him dead, and tried to kill him. And it took an hour before they left this place. Not even buying anything. They were just trying to kill this kid.
In the campaign?
In the campaign.
Okay. 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 All right.
They were trying to find a way to break into his little glass room and kill him and steal his things.
Wow. That's I get how that could be funny if you knew each other, but if you're just some strangers being dicks to each other, it seems like it'd be really awkward for everybody involved.
It was very funny because we were drunk and we knew each other very well. And a lot of these people, that was with a group that Some of them do a podcast called Terrible Warriors, which if you want another D&D podcast that I recommend a lot, I recommend that one.
Oh, now we have to get them to plug for us. It's only fair. No, but seriously, get them to plug for us.
I would love them to. Specifically, I'm good friends with Cassie, who is one of the Terrible Warriors consistently. And they do, just very briefly, they do like sort of these month-long arcs. So they'll do like, they'll get like a new campaign book or a new system or something, and they'll play that for like 5 episodes. And that's the whole adventure. And sometimes they'll go back, or sometimes they'll have like an anniversary reunion episode where it's like they'll have like Master Chief and like the Wizard Skullzar or whatever, and just like all these like weird characters from all these different systems like in the same session. And it's just really funny to like, as like a viewer, to kind of get that.
Oh, so
I recommend it.
They'll like play a campaign, but like this, I'm going to play a ranger that's actually Master Chief and has a laser gun, and that's just their character for an arc, and then they have new characters each time.
It's so they'll play like, they do like Star Trek D&D game. They'll do like a Cthulhu D&D game.
Oh, so like totally different like tabletop.
Totally different systems.
That's really
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really fresh. Because I mean,
so
I'm sick
like,
of Orgaloth. I imagine everybody else is, but no. Just I love him.
It's really interesting. And then this is a little bit of a topic switch. But the 3 characters, our 3 principal characters in the show, are interesting to me because like the way that they were all handled, it was very exciting and nerve-wracking for a DM. But thankfully, like none of them had like some things that are like clear like concern points, like clear like watch out for this points. For example, the dark, brooding, mysterious character, the one with the troubled past, the brute who hates everyone that's like noble and will try to kill them on sight. Like some of these traits might sound a little familiar, but they're not nearly to those extremes, and those extremes are more common than you think.
Yeah.
Like the extremes are normal.
And what
rarely will you?
I guess I would kind of assume, because with the context of like D&D, you're creating your one character. Like you want it's like, oh, original OC
Mary
don't
Sue's
steal.
And Mary Sue's are the plague.
Yeah.
Like they are the norm. People will make Mary Sue characters, or I don't know what the male version of that naming scheme is. But fuck it, who cares? It's a dude named Mary Sue.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
It's 2017, whatever.
Yeah. His name could be Mary Stu. I have a friend named Peach. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They tend to just be like perfect in every way and not have any flaws. And I think that a good thing about our group is that it seems that our characters have flaws. And I think that's what makes it so much more interesting as a story. Because I think that perfect characters are boring.
Yeah, boring as shit.
I've never made a perfect character for a D&D game that I truly enjoyed. Or I've made a character that at first was too perfect, but I found through the story that I was already writing for him why he wasn't, and that's why I love him now. But a lot of the characters I play now, I'll take significant disadvantages in order to play them. Like for one character for a D&D campaign I've wanted to make for a while now, I was this the race is called Kenku, and Kenku are really cool because I'm sorry, this is like super completely not why you chose to listen to this little episode. But Kenku are these bird people. Like they look like ravens. They have little raven heads. And they're a race that got added as playable in 5e recently. And their problem is, the thing that's interesting about Kenku is that they actually cannot speak. Kenku have no vocal abilities whatsoever. Except, whatsoever is a bad word, except for the fact that they can mimic any voice that they hear. So they have no personal voice. And I wanted to make this cursed man who became a Kenku, who is like a lounge singer or something, who is now on a quest to try to regain himself. Yeah.
Hell yeah. That sounds cool as shit.
But the challenge there is that I have to then impersonate everyone at the table instead of playing my own character.
Yeah. That was and you mentioned that, like, I'm sure that was like difficult, but it ended up being super fun. Like, cause that level of challenge, like that's something I think part of the reason, like, I was the one that sort of got the 4 of us together. I picked the 3 of you for a reason. Adam, obviously you were the one On top of course, the three of you being good friends of mine for years. The Adam, you had the most experience with D&D. I know you can create worlds. You get super obsessed with something and talk too much about it, right? But that's what a DM does. Like, so it's perfect. You're the match made in heaven. But then I also not anymore because I moved, but I worked like our actual day job with Warnicky and Stewart, and we'd have shifts where it'd be like the three of us would be the ones there, and we'd be able to have our dumbass conversations about weird Lord of the Rings lore, but then also get stuff done. And that's this is actually my first time.
So the important thing is that you had chemistry with those people.
We have the chemistry, and so we can have silly conversations, but also be getting stuff done.
I think the furthest link in our friends group, and I don't mean this to be negative, but it's just interesting, is I think the furthest disconnect is between myself and Warnicky, actually. Because I know Warnicky. I've known him for a long time now, but like we have never been like really close. I obviously want to hang out with him more now, but like before this, I didn't really spend a lot of time with him, especially not in one-on-one settings. So other than that, we have...
Oh, as you're getting to know Peleus, you're also getting to know Warnicky.
It's actually pretty interesting because of that. And I'm actually getting to know the group a little bit better in the way they think. I think the person in terms of like playing I've known the most is Stewart, because I've played with and DM'd Stewart before in the past. And I think of the group, he's the most experienced with D&D, other than myself. Yeah. Although...
I know Warnicky said he played a lot in whenever. I actually don't know.
Yeah. Warnicky wasn't like, he was not a fresh limb. I think you were definitely the person with the least experience in D&D.
I was, Warnicky, for sure. Like, I've played video games, and since like every video RPG ever was like directly inspired by D&D in some way, it's kind of... You go back, it's almost like when you watch like Twin Peaks or JoJo's or something that was like super influential, and you realize like you might have known before, but you realize just how much it influenced everything
Twin Peaks
after it.
It's insane the amount of influence you see in everything.
Yeah, and it's this, and then it's the same thing as with like D&D. Like I'll go back and play it and be like, oh, these are obviously, I know 5e has changed a lot since the original, but the stuff that's been around since the beginning. Like you look at the rules for like the original set, and you're like, wow, this is how RPGs work now, and you just kind of realize how much it's influenced everything. So I guess some stuff was intuitive because all the stuff that I grew up playing was based off of these. So it's just kind of like,
I grew up playing like Gauntlet, Dark Legacy, and a lot of Knights of the Old Republic and Jedi Knight Academy and stuff like that. Those are all super D&D based. Like those are pretty linearly D&D.
With like, you have your character, you choose
a story,
what abilities
you go
it has,
through,
you dice roll for damage.
Yeah, go on little adventures. But getting back to our characters in the party. So I've had a lot of fun with the characters. With Orgaloth, it's been a really super collaborative experience with Chris, because he's been able to kind of help me figure out the most about Orgaloth. I know Orgaloth the second best. I'll explain why. I know Orgaloth's second best of anyone in the party because I talked to Chris about the campaign a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of that, there's actually two reasons for that. One, obviously, I'd never made a character before. So it's like, Adam, is this going to be shitty? Is this... Because you know what makes characters bad.
In the wrong hands, I'll say this. In the wrong hands, Orgaloth would be a terrible character. He would have... You'd been like, please kill him by falling rocks at some point. But you've handled it very well, and I thought I think that's what made it super... I was okay with it when you presented it, because I was like, oh, this is Chris. This is not a Chris character. This is Chris trying a character.
Yeah, there's a very clear, there's certain things that haven't happened yet that I've been like adamant about that I want to do with his like mechanics and stuff, because I had a really clear from the beginning idea of what kind of character I want to play. Like, and I guess that kind of comes from my, really, if anything, like my Dark Souls build experience.
That's actually where most of our conversations
for anybody,
about like D&D-esque stuff come from.
That's true, yeah. But and you maybe know this. I know you played Dark Souls 3. I don't know how much of a veteran of the whole series, but once you've played through the game a bunch, and I think this is true of a lot of Western style RPGs, where the personal character development is like huge, like in any Elder Scrolls 2, where you might be playing through content you've played before, but you're doing it to build a character. Like you are in a world that you're familiar with, and you want to see how it responds to this new build that you've done that may be completely different than your playstyle. So yeah, there's like that two kinds of the first time you go through, your character is built by the world, and the second time you go through, you create your character and bend the world to its will. And it's kind of that second mindset where I hadn't played D&D before, but I read the player handbook cover to cover, the spell books and stuff like that. So I really looked and saw all my options. By the way,
no one does that.
I maybe not.
If you think that's normal, no one does that. Most people.
I know that.
People that are
I know that's
getting
not
into
normal.
D&D, nobody reads the whole thing. You read what you need, and that's it. And read what you need, you'll be good in D&D.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that was necessary. Yeah, I don't think that was necessarily necessary. I'm not recommending that to anybody.
That's also why you got into grappling at some point.
That I did. Well, yeah, because I knew that was a thing. Like and we'll see. I only kind of started it here because it really becomes useful when you get a second attack. Like that's just part of
grab and punch.
Just part of the thing. But yeah, and that's the thing. You can like grab and then knock prone in one move, and that was because I always, even when I was just in my mind formulating the character. Sorry, excuse me. For instance, MMOs, I played WoW for a while, and I was looking to get back into Final Fantasy XIV. I always like playing the tank. That's just my favorite role to do, so I wanted to do that. And because of the way that D&D works, it doesn't quite work the same. Like, it's not like, oh, okay, I go in and I taunt and everything attacks me, and then, it's a bit more fluid than that. But how do you think, how in the system do you still take that kind of mindset where I'm supplying that side? And then, well, there's grappling, right? Where in the way that a tank would not necessarily be doing a lot of damage, but would be controlling the opponent so that his teammates are most able to affect it. That is grappling in this game. And building a character for that, like I want with charisma, but also strength is the two high stats. And, when I dual class of sorcerer, things that improve that, that I had that clear idea of what I wanted for a character from the beginning. And that's why I don't know, maybe I'll be making some kind of, as we'll see as it goes through, choices that I've planned out might be unusual, but they only could have happened because I knew I wanted to do something like that. That was a very specific build that like fit what I wanted to do, and that was why I read through the entire player handbook.
Yeah.
No other reason. I would have done a quick start.
I never do the quick start characters. It feels weird. I recommend, usually what you do in D&D is the first session of any D&D session is you sit with a DM and you make your characters with him or her. But with 5, you don't really have to do that as much. It used to be a bigger thing in Pathfinder and 3.5 and stuff like that because it was very complicated. There were a lot of books. There were a lot of skills. There was a lot of stats. There were several pages of paper for your characters, even if you didn't have any spells. This one, not so much. You have the 2 pages like for every character, and the second page is completely unnecessary if you don't care about the way your character looks or how they act and stuff. You can get by with 1 sheet of paper in D&D 5e.
And that also, I think, because of the simplicity of 5e, earlier editions, we probably wouldn't be able to play
not
with
in the
Discord
same way. I think it would have been... Okay, so if you are listening and you're wondering, man, I'm having trouble visualizing things, I'm sorry. We are not playing with any visual mediums. We are not using Roll20. We're not using the D&D sites of any kind. Roll20 is the one I know by name for a fact. I don't want to say any others and sound like an idiot. I don't need any help there. We don't use any visual mediums because I wanted to make sure that for the listeners, this experience was as easy to follow as possible. If I cannot explain over the Discord call what is happening without showing them any text or anything like that, I failed. I need to be able to do this it needs to be as difficult for the players as it is for the audience. And if it's not difficult for the players, perfect. If it is, then I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong.
And that actually comes back to I've edited these for brevity. There are a bunch of times that you don't hear in the episode. Like usually, if there's a complicated room, like I've not done as it happens, but before we recorded this was editing episode 7. During that first room with the ghouls and the lever puzzle, there's a bit in that where I'm trying to visualize everything, and I ask Adam to describe it, and he describes everything again a second time. I cut that entirely. Right, because I needed to hear it because it was you had this whole interesting puzzle set up and stuff that you had to wrap your head around.
Grooves and there were like these like little gutters in the floor where chains are going through and they lead into the wall, and then out from another higher part of the back wall, the chains come out again and are attached to like these zombies. And like the way that all works is just really confusing.
Yeah, and if that seems like that's a lot to grasp while also following the combat and then, making our jokes and trying to think about, what's happening, that's because that is a lot to follow. So there are times where we're like, wait, could you describe
Stewart
again?
has a lot of trouble with
was
that,
this
actually.
thing? Okay, where was he standing?
Stewart is a very jittery fellow. So it's like, for him, it's like, no, seriously, like he has, I believe, ADHD, ADD or something like that. It's so for him, the ability to pay attention to that much detail is actually physically difficult or mentally demanding. So like there's probably a lot of areas we've cut where it's like me having to remind him of something just because like, well, there's a lot to take in.
Yeah. So the takeaway from that is, you listener, if paying attention to all of this seems difficult, that's because it is. And we've cut things in such a way to make it seem like we're faster and more organized than we are. Just obviously for content, because no one wants to hear like a bunch of idiots trying to figure out what's happening. They want to hear their responses to it. So
yeah, and if you are having issue or you're having specific trouble or something that you can kind of point out to us, we would love to see your comments or emailing us. I mean, all those options are available on both our SoundCloud and YouTube page and stuff.
Hopefully soon, iTunes.
Yeah, hopefully soon iTunes when someone figures out RSS feeds, which is
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna figure that out. Which is, again, I know that's effort, and that's kind of why I want to pass off the editing, because I'll do all that stuff too. That also kind of fits into Jimothy's character in a few ways too.
Okay, so I want to talk about Jimothy, and I have like this whole spiel. Jimothy's great. I love Jimothy. So kind of just, I guess, out of nowhere. Jimothy is one of the most interesting characters, and it's great that Alex plays him for a lot of reasons. A lot of them are very funny. For one, Jimothy has the highest history stat in the entire party, period. He is the most knowledgeable when it comes to history, but at the same time, he's the party's amnesia.
Yeah, we were talking about this, about like
He has no recollection of his own history, but he can remember useless fun facts. It's amazing. So, and this actually works in my favor, because a lot of the time history checks don't make a lot of sense. It's like, can you roll a history check for me? And it's basically like, oh yeah, you remember this. It's like, why don't I just remember that? With Jimothy, it makes perfect in-universe sense. He actually doesn't remember anything. And sometimes things will just kind of trigger memories for him, or they won't. And Jimothy's an interesting character because of that. And remember how earlier I was saying that I know Orgaloth's second best in the party? Jimothy's character I know the best because he was amnesiac to begin with, and Alex said basically, or Stewart said basically, do whatever you want with him, story-wise. So I've been able to make a lot of really interesting choices plot-wise and stuff with Jimothy, which is, as a writer, pretty freeing, but as a DM, it's pretty intimidating.
Yeah.
But I've been able to make this really cool background for Jimothy that is super different from the Jimothy we see now, and I think that makes it more interesting. I'm hoping it doesn't make Alex not happy with his character, but at the same time, like, I think it's a cool story.
I think
worth
something
telling.
else that honestly kind of even comes into that is we've established already just with the Iron Sun arc that Jimothy now is different from Elric before. Like, even if he learns about Elric, he's not Elric, and that actually plays into like, because you say that like, yeah, like Jimothy is a collaborative effort, but really you're writing Elric. And Alex is writing Jimothy, like this born-again Jimothy. And I think that actually, whether this was like your plan or not, the fact that it's that you're literally writing the two different parts of it makes that transformation feel more real.
It's much more interesting, and it gives Jimothy a lot more depth. Because you start to question who he is and like what makes him him. And what parts of him are Jimothy, what parts of him are Elric? Like, is his interest in fighting, is that Elric inside, or is that Jimothy renewed again? Like, was Elric as charming and fun? Was he also mistaken for a child all the time, or was this a Jimothy thing, like exclusively?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've really played around with him a lot. I guess the character I know the least is a really bad way to say it, but I guess
by order of elimination,
Peleus.
right? Deductive reasoning.
Yeah. Technically, by a technical, like, tiny margin, I know him the least. But at the same time, I have a lot of plans for Peleus, so don't worry. I'm not just like, oh, here's an afterthought, whatever. Let me just re-say that because I bumped the mic. Peleus, I know the least technically, but he's not sort of an afterthought, like, oh, whatever, I'll just do whatever I want with him. He's kind of like, he's a wizard now, whatever. No, I have a clear-cut plan for Peleus, and he is one of the most, I guess, currently developed characters in terms of the overall story. That could be wrong, and I could eat my own words at some point, but...
I think I would agree, though, because, I mean, we had, even though the Iron Sun was kind of like, we're learning about Jimothy's past, the actual development, like, we got to have... a
lot of development is Peleus.
Yeah, because we got to have him meet this character, Peric, that he, believed was dead. He got to have that kind of experience of sharing the loss of his... It made the backstory that Warnicki wrote, what you had kind of set up, allowed that to be expressed and really understood in a way that otherwise would have just been like a throwaway detail, right? Like, it's just Peleus doesn't have any family. It's like, no, he had this whole background, and his people were slaughtered, and that's just words until we had Peric and we had him explaining, and we had that touching scene at the bar, which then I guess to kind of segue back into talking about, I was saying before how Adam's able to just kind of spin these things. That whole scene with Davos, the jolly man at the bar that we were drinking with, you tell me was not planned. We just kind of, you had to think of something because we were just like, we fucked off and did something else. And that scene was great. I think that was one of the best parts of that whole arc. And you just kind of pulled that out of your ass, and it was fantastic. And that even, I think we were even talking before how it kind of balanced out that whole setting. So whereas it's just like, oh, you have the sad moment with Peleus, and then we're serious the whole episode. It's like, no, it's sad, and you get to kind of experience that, and then we have something happy, so you're not just like stewing in your own emotions.
Yeah, I feel like episode 4 was definitely the darkest by far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, episode 4, yeah.
Yeah, because I did a lot of mean things in that episode.
Yeah, I was not expecting, like, I kind of expected Typhus to be a thing, but no, I mean, we got him killed, and you weren't going to just plot armor him.
No. If anything, I made sure he died.
Yeah. But, and that was also, I don't know how well it hit, but that had to do, the reason, like, if you listen to episode 4, it sticks out, and maybe we'll bring this back. Musically, it was the only one with, so far the only one with live instruments, where I actually recorded live guitar through, if anyone cares, there's a Gibson Les Paul through an orange OR15, 2013 Gibson Les Paul Studio through an OR15 with, and an MXR submachine as a fuzz for the merman, not fishman, not fantasy racist.
But yeah, the merman, what was his name? Kalos?
Yes.
Kalos, yes. Okay, Kalos is a great character. I really like Kalos because of like who he is, and as like he's the first barbarian I've ever written. And I might have shown, but like I loved this, like what Kalos represented in the story.
Doom metal.
Even though he is very brief. Well, doom metal. But at the same time, he was also kind of this like, reminder to the party, because the party has been doing excuse me. He was this kind of reminder in the story because the party has been doing sort of a, I wouldn't say exactly breezy, but for the most part, they've had very little trouble with normal people.
Yeah. Like combat wise, like we haven't fought anything too tough.
When it comes to like, I mean, there was the corn the corn husk monster from episode 2.
But that went so well for us. Like we got lucky roll stuff, just kind of worked out. Like it was like a first boss,
and he was huge. And it's different when it's huge like that. That's like, okay, this is huge. That's going to be tough. Kalos is relatively around the same size as you guys. He's like maybe a foot taller than like.
Yeah, I think you described him as like almost 8 feet tall. So he's like he's like just. He's got a little head up on Orgoloth, but otherwise to the rest of you guys, it's like, oh, this is just he's like the mountain from Game of Thrones or something, not like a raid boss.
Yeah. And so like the idea that he's basically like he can take your entire party and friends on at once is this kind of like wake up call. Like you are not anywhere near the level of what it means to be like a higher power in this country right now. You're getting there. Like you've progressed rather quickly.
But we were only level 4, right? So
Yeah, you're only level 4. And I guess it's kind of like a sobering moment as a result, where it's like, oh shit, Typhus died because we couldn't save him.
Yeah, that whole thing was a huge wake-up call. Like, even though there was a point for me, I don't know...
There was an active effort to save him.
Yeah, I don't know how clear it was in the episode. That was, I guess, when I kind of got the most, myself, what's the word I'm looking for? Invested. Because it's like, I like, Typhus wasn't hugely expanded, but I liked him. And then, like, I like Peric. Like, okay, they're cool characters I want to see more of. And then it was put in such a way where it's like, I thought for a few days, like while I was editing and stuff after the episode for episode 4, like, could I have done anything different to save Typhus? Because in the fight where Typhus died, I was the only combatant. And I thought, well, it was because the way I thought it was going, I said, oh, I'll just do this so you guys can be fresh. We'll know maybe if all 3 of us went and did it, we would be able to save Typhus. Maybe if we didn't involve him, he wouldn't have died later. It was like a lot of...
But it's also like, would you have died to... You guys might have died to Kalos if Typhus didn't take those initial
exactly,
hits.
yeah. So, like, you think, like...
Actually, you would have probably got knocked down. I think that the final fight would have been... One of the 3 would already be out by the fight with Ivan.
Yeah, there's a... And I thought we were going to end up fighting him last anyway. It was a complete... For everybody, really. It was a complete shock. Like, what? We're not... Huh? So, huh? That was even...
The party chose not to, and it was like, I can't force it beyond that, because it didn't fit the character that I was writing for Ivan.
Yeah, and I thought we were going to fight. I think, Peleus originally thought we were too. It wasn't like Jimothy said, no, I don't want to. And then, Warnicky had the thought process, because he played Peleus really well. Like, I think Warnicky wanted to fight him, but like Peleus is like, we've already lost enough. And then saying that, like, that for me personally in real life, and I also think this would happen to Orgoloth too, would kind of snap him out of it, so to speak. Like, him said, no, you're not getting away.
Yeah,
like, no, because my character, me personally and my character were both super angry at Ivan, thinking that he, caused the death of...
Was responsible.
Yeah. And then, like, what Warnicky said, what Peleus would be thinking was a wake-up call both to me and to Orgoloth. That was like, oh, okay, I guess we really shouldn't. And then that was...
And I think it was kind of like a sort of an interesting development, because I think it lends a little bit more to the credit of Ivan as a character, where it's like, he doesn't even want to fight anymore. Like, he didn't even fight, and he's like, I'm done. Like, we're done. This is already over. And it's like, is he even, like, interested in fighting us? Is he even interested in fighting the party?
Yeah, like, it left him much more, like, we thought we had him figured out, and now he's this much more, just clearly, or purely by information we thought was true, finding out that it wasn't, like, characteristic, becomes a deeper character, just because of that mystery.
Yeah. And it's not clear yet. Does that mean he's in charge, or is he lower end of the totem pole? Like, where does he lie now? Because it's like, did he choose not to fight because he's able to make those calls because he's in charge, or did he choose not to fight because he knows there's no point? He doesn't need to risk himself if it's like he's not going to get anything from it, from just like going back to wherever he came from. Yeah, and that's we don't know when he's going to show up again, because obviously he's going to show up again. We don't know when he's going to show up again. I don't know if you do. Yeah, but that also, I guess, is time to come back with the spoilers. Like, you said that you had to spoil some stuff for me. I'll bring this up if we talk more about the music later or something. Never mind. But just really quickly, since we've talked a lot about the characters, but we didn't really talk about what our schedule is, and it's been like 40 minutes or something. It's been a while now since we started recording. I don't know how much is actually making into the episode. But tell us about your week, mostly, because I kind of briefly mentioned mine. I'll reiterate that's after you, but what does your week usually look like? Okay,
so we record on Wednesdays. At first it was like one episode per day, but for the last couple arcs we did them all in one sitting. And I think we talked about like the benefits of that we'll try and balance, where recording one episode and then getting it out and then getting a response and recording a new one.
I personally like the idea of recording all of them together if it's like a shorter arc like that, especially when we're switching this more, if you haven't noticed, the episodes are getting shorter and shorter. And that's so that we can then have those arcs done in one session, so it feels normal.
Yeah, and that's because it wouldn't be a problem for me necessarily because of the editing, but if we didn't do that, we would have had to go back and go and listen to the episodes, which I mean, I think we should all be doing anyway, but it would be obligatory where we'd have to go back and listen to the episode. Like, what the fuck did we do last week?
Take notes, specific notes on things. And also it makes our editing experience in general a lot easier and more flexible because 2 of us moved. I moved out of I'm living in a friend's living room right now, and Chris moved all the way to the southern tip of the state, basically.
Yeah, because I finished school and it was like, okay, I had the opportunity to just move back in my parents to save money for a while so I can move out again, in a few months. Because obviously saving money is a lot easier when you don't have to pay rent. But yeah, there's a lot of big shakeups. Yeah. So as you were, I'm sure, going to get into for the this arc in Ambrosia's Castle, which feels like it's going to be the beginning, like a kind of part 1 of a whole big arc where we go into the desert. I don't know because we haven't recorded that yet. There's a lot
of potential with this one. It's crazy. Like the setup for this one is really like it gave me a lot more freedom, but we're also on a time limit. Interesting enough, we'll get back to that. But yeah, go.
But so we recorded these 3 episodes, episode 5, 6, and 7, in one sitting. Like we'd record like a bit, and then we'd be like, okay, that's episode 5. We'd go take a pee break and make some tea or coffee or whatever. Come back.
Maybe a little chit chat, like how's everyone feeling? What's going on? And half of us would be like, I'm dead exhausted, and it's like new episode. And
the other half would be like, I'm dead exhausted too, but let's get these done.
My really funny. I don't know how obvious it was. The beginning of episode 4. So we did episodes 3 and 4 together, and those were long episodes.
Yes.
For a multi-part to do at one time. Those were a bit difficult.
Much more.
5, 6,
I cut
7
out a lot, especially in episode 3. Like I know the episodes ended up being like an hour and a half and an hour. We were recording. We were recording for almost 6 hours, I think.
Yeah. And that's usually how it goes it went with the longer episodes. The shorter ones have been more closer to 4 or 5, if they're multi-parts, which they've all been now. But the shorter ones, if they were singles, would probably be about 2 hours, which is pretty lenient in my opinion. Remember, I used to do hour and a half long podcasts. So 3 hours of actual like recorded audio and 5 hour sessions total is not new to me. The DMing aspect is a lot harder than hosting a podcast, I think, but granted, it was the topics that we were doing and stuff. It was gaming, and that's kind of my forte. So it was a lot easier. But for like the writing and being creative and improvising on the spot with the D&D thing, it was
much more mentally
more
taxing,
exhausting.
I'm sure.
Exactly. Yeah. But those first 2 episodes, or those episodes 3 and 4 were done together, and we finished episode 3. And it was originally going to be a 3-parter. The Ivan fight was going to be part 3 in that arc, that mini arc, and it was going to be episode 5. I'm sad it didn't end up happening because there were cool things that were going to happen, but at the same time, I'm happy because we were exhausted, and it lent itself to more interesting things and made sure that certain things were going to go into place.
I'm also like from a pacing perspective, because the biggest takeaway I got from episode 4 and from getting feedback from friends. Speaking of James and Zane, if you're listening, thank you so much for the feedback. It's been super helpful.
Oh yeah, but, yeah. We have a few people that have been kind of our go-to people when it comes to like, hey, we need you to listen to this audio or listen to this music, or here's the thing that I wrote as a good. My buddy Angel's been helping me with a lot of like narrative ideas. Like I'll run something by him without trying to spoil it, which is difficult to sell. Or I'll talk to James about what I felt about an episode. Yeah, what were you going to say?
Well, just that having just combat for episode 4 was cool, but it starts to get, especially because we were kind of thinking of one of the first sort of suggestions that I got from the beginning is like, oh, why not have battle music? And the reason that I originally didn't want to have battle music kind of showed through in episode 4, because those were big, long, epic fights. And the music just went on for like.
You need to be getting like Final Fantasy X level music for like the battle theme.
Exactly.
And that needs to be something that you can use a lot and be easy enough that it's not going to be boring.
Exactly. And that kind of comes back to why we need to shift the editing, because I can't write writing something like that's like 2 minutes long but can loop. It's a lot of work. I love it. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work.
Right. Yeah, I'm working on a game now for a research project that uses a piano as a keyboard, like as a controller, and we're talking about getting music people, and I'm just like, my head is spinning at the thought of how much work it's going to take to make a music-oriented game. And like we kind of can give ourselves a little bit of leeway when it comes to like we can reuse things, like we can like basically modify or improve original songs, because Chris wrote all this music like himself, so like it stands to reason that he could then, if he wanted to, instead of trying to compose a new piece from scratch, go back and just finish whatever perfect thought he had in mind for a piece, and then just make that into something that's usable. But at the same time, it's like that's not really what his vision was when it came to making this podcast. He wanted to be able to make a bunch of different interesting things throughout and keep everything fresh from like the get-go.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that actually kind of comes to something that was really present, and I got a lot of good feedback on it in the second episode. How I took something that Adam had originally wrote, like in the second episode, there's that kind of dream we have with the singing.
That is...
I took the melodic, like, that motive or light. There's a difference between motif, motive, and light motif, but it's a musical motive. It's a small, like one of the smallest units of musical thought. Like the big examples, Beethoven's Fifth, da 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 da. That little bit that becomes the whole thing. I took that one, and then I tried to write some more of the music based on that and expand it, and then and that concept of motivic development, that's a huge thing in composition. Like that's one of like the main kind of thought processes that you just learn is motivic development. Something I did to a degree in episode or in this arc that we've just finished, and I guess we'll see how it turns out, because I have yet to write the ghoul and boss fight music that we're going to experience. I haven't written that as of right now. I want to...
Who was the boss? What was the boss fight in that episode?
Chain down guy or something, right?
I completely forgot. Yeah. Wow, I cannot believe I forgot
It's been almost a month for us, right? I only remember it because one, I was thinking what I'm going to write for it musically, and two, I'm editing it, right? So it's fresh in my mind. Mm-hmm. But I haven't done those as of right now. But what I'm planning to do, and I guess we'll see how well this worked out, was if you were to go back and listen to... both the music when we first arrived is the first time you hear it. There's a particular melody that that, and try to take that and develop it in the sort of werewolf boss fight, which on my part, I will admit it right now, super lazy. I wanted to just get that episode done so I could get started on 7, and then also the
werewolf fight is. It's interesting because I think that you were afforded a little bit of laziness with that one, because it was like kind of a sillier sort of episode overall, and the situation itself was interesting enough. The music didn't need to kind of.
It was also a very short fight, which was great. So
it was funny. I really liked that fight.
But also the and
Alex Stewart probably hated
because he
that
wasn't
fight.
even part of it. Yeah, but that works out because he got his whole little segueing in. He got his whole little bit where he got to explore. That piece also, if you were to go back and listen to it, it's just there's just a pedal tone in the bass, and then in the violins and top is a slimmed down version of that same theme that I've been using for Ambrosia's Castle. But while also, I thought about making it super obvious, but I was trying to pay homage to, of course, the great Luigi's Mansion. Like that file on my computer, the project file for that theme is called Jimothy's Mansion. So that is, if that sounds familiar, it is great. Meant to be an homage. That is not me trying to be like, I mean, given it doesn't. I was thinking of actually having like throwing in somewhere, sprinkling in dun 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 to make it obvious, but decided against it.
But that would have been a little bit too.
Yeah, well, because then my thought process was like that.
Someone's gonna think you're just
exactly. Because I was thinking like, let me make it so obvious, but no one's gonna get it, right?
And when it comes to these creative sort of things, I will admit this now, so it makes it clear for people. The story of Arcane Mystery Tour is completely original, from top to bottom. Is completely original. Some magical items, very few of them, are completely borrowed. I'm not sure which ones at this point because I've written a lot. I don't know if I don't think we've encountered that many magical items.
Too many, no.
Because I'm trying to pace myself. Yeah. Because I would love to give them out like candy, but it's really the worst thing you can do in the world.
Because we'll either get these things and they're going to be overpowered and there's no way you can compensate for them, or we'll get them and they'll sit in our inventories and we'll completely forget about them. So instead you just give out candy like candy, and then Jimothy is happy.
Yeah. That was totally improvised. I have no idea where that came from.
Did I tell you what I kind of was hoping was going to happen?
Yeah, you assumed it was going to be some kind of like gym badge situation where you go around and get all the candy pieces.
Not like that. Like he would end up getting candy from every, because I was thinking it was going to be like a clue thing, that he would get candy from every person, and then Jimothy would mysteriously get sick, and we had to figure out who poisoned him.
Oh, that would have been funny.
That would have been cool, but there's no way you could have improv that. And then, of course, Orgoloth was the one that ended up getting sick, so whoa.
How did it work? Yeah. No, yeah. I remember. Yeah, God, that was fun. And I really actually do want to talk about the lycanthropy thing. There was actually an original version that you did, and I thought that was really cool, but it didn't really fit because it was too vague. Yeah. We have a couple of jokes and references that get completely scrapped because they're super vague. One of my favorites is one that Chris did recently. It was a video that we both really like that he showed me. It was, if you've seen the Pepe Sylvia scene from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, a dude who's like a very talented drummer drum beats to the actual scene. Like he follows the flow of the beat using drums as like his kind of like.
And tool. He's done that for other scenes. That's just the most popular one. So Pepe Sylvia W/ like with drums. Search it on YouTube. Excellent, hilarious. Watch it.
It's very cool just to see like his like creative ideas and stuff. And like at first, sometimes you go like, wait, what? And then it's like, oh, this makes so much more sense. Like you can tell he's watched that scene several times over just to like figure out like, okay, I should do this, and then maybe
it also kind of highlights the flow of that scene, how it has its own rhythm and stuff.
Because scene work is like super, super like melodic in the way that you have to do it. You have to be able to make it sort of like a dance or a song in the way that it's edited, in the way that you present it to the audience, so that it's easy to follow. And it shows a good build up for Charlie Day.
Yeah, and so he had that video of drumming too, and I kind of referenced that. Like I took the bit of Pelia saying "beat a werewolf off."
Do you want to just like put it in here?
Nah.
No, not feeling it.
But
okay, but it was just like that sort of like beat the werewolf, and just like with the drums and stuff. It was
like weird just like mathcore drums to the cadence of Warnicky saying "beat a werewolf off,"
which is funny, but no one would get it.
Yeah, it didn't really fit. So that's just sitting on my computer.
Yeah, it's something for us.
Yeah.
And I mean, other things that have never made. I've been working on a. Sorry, I do not remember what we were talking about before this.
I don't remember
either. But things that never made it were also I've been working on a cover like splash image for the show, like an actual like proper.
Oh yeah, that's
thing.
Like all the sketches you've sent us have been so cool.
For like months, and I've had no time because I've been doing all the writing, and I have on top of this, just to kind of give you a perspective of my life. Twice a week, I intern at college, like as in a research lab. I also do game design workshop, and I produce and do modeling for that. I do this, and I also play competitive Overwatch. And on top of that, I also do like pinup art and a bunch of other things around the web. So like for me, I have very little time. And I spend a lot of nights not sleeping. So I guess that kind of gives you an idea. So I've had no time at all to really be able to tackle that piece when I've been able to be, I guess, in the mood for it and also improve it. And I've had several points where I've lost some of the data just because like freak accidents and stuff like that.
That's the worst.
But it's this huge, complicated piece that has like, God, 100 layers.
It's like massive.
Just for
it's
the
like
rough.
A Where's Waldo
it's not even
painting
finished.
With more character.
It's not even fully roughed out yet. But it's supposed to be like an overarching, like here are all really cool, interesting characters and references and things to the current story. And what sucks is that the more we go into this first season, the more I have to add. So it has been just a nightmare. And I still have stuff I haven't added from the past 4 episodes.
Oh man, so maybe when this is all over, you'll see, listener, you'll get
maybe
to see it.
When it's all over, I'll have it. God.
Maybe we'll have a,
but it's
a
really
hiatus,
cool.
And you can, after like, the next 2 big arcs or something on a cliffhanger, you can finish it. But,
yeah, it's but it's been interesting, and I'm not sure how long it'll even last because I have this idea. I don't know if I should bring up like season 2 ideas or the idea of a season.
We can decide. You can tell me, and we can decide whether we want to have it cut.
Season 2 may not even be following the same group, but will be related.
Okay, same universe, different characters. I know.
And there will be opportunities, I think, for certain characters to be replayed, but other characters may not have an opportunity to be replayed at all based on choices or based on story reasons.
I think I remember us talking about this.
Yeah. The characters themselves will have to make specific choices in order to... would they be able to physically be a part of this world? Is the time period the same? I've been considering the idea of 1,000 years in the future past this point, and for very good reason. And it's not just like, oh, I just want it to be as far away as possible. There's a specific reason it has to be that period.
Yeah.
Away from where it is now. And I've also considered the idea of like a parallel story. Would that be interesting? Or maybe like a small one-shot following the adventures of like Ivan and Kalos and
Estevar.
And Estevar, because they're also a really cool trio. I like them a lot. Like they're similar, but they're different.
We have a day in the life of Sherbert.
Sherbert. I have also considered doing little like mini-sodes of like Grasbone just in his castle. I've recorded one. I think I sent it to Chris.
Oh no,
already.
you didn't. Otherwise, I would have edited it and shit.
I did not send it to you, but I did make one. It's like a 30-second or a minute and a half long thing. And it's something I've wanted to make into an animatic, but I have no skills.
Or time.
Or just like little like... time is the big part.
Maybe we'll save it as like little promotional material.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I've been making music and that's been kind of setting the tone of this podcast, the editing and setting the conversational flow has been as much or even more so setting the mood. Like it has become... artistic, I guess, is the word for it. Like it's
you're making music without music, and I think it really lends to your like musical
music
skills.
is nothing but organized sounds.
Right. No, I'm saying
and that's what this is.
But that's also why I like working with you. Chris and I have worked on like several projects together by this point.
That's true. Yeah. If we hadn't done that, if we hadn't already had that experience of working with each other, that whole like even with that, I mean, we can talk about in a sec how difficult it was to write that first theme, which kind of comes back to what you're saying about not wanting to spoil stuff for me. Do you remember? And also coming into stuff that was left out. Maybe I'll put some of it here. I had so many drafts for the main theme, like that main theme that you hear at the beginning and end.
Oh
of
my god,
episode.
that was a couple weeks of just
I was so
back
mad.
and forth.
I was so frustrated and like.
Oh no, I can imagine, and like I realized that even at the time, and it was like, what do I?
Yeah, because there was nothing like
without...
you didn't want to spoil stuff for me, but then that was kind of when we made that decision. You had to tell me some stuff, and then once you did, it clicked. Like I remember I was talking like because we the Alexes and I had a Dark Souls 1 playthrough that we had like a group chat for. I was even complaining like, oh, what does he want from me? And then you decided like to spoil stuff, and then I was like, oh, I get it now. This doesn't, all this stuff that I learned a new style of guitar. Like to make that stuff, like I spent, what's it? One of those took me overall like 4 or 5 days, even though it's short, because I had to learn a new kind of guitar, learn another kind of recording technique to record that guitar that I had never done before.
And it was really frustrating because it was at the same time as like, I guess from my end, it was like trying to convince 3 people that there's not to go into a room where there's a zombie, but I can't tell them that.
Yeah.
Because that means that I know there's a zombie in there, which means I probably put it in there. So it's like, just don't. It's haunted. And it's like, no, it's not. It's fine. Just like,
yeah.
And there was like decisions being made like as a group that made sense, like
with our knowledge of what we had experienced. Like that theme that I wrote, it did fit the first episode, but knowing what I know now, even knowing what you told me then, it would not fit the whole theme at all. It would not have worked. It would have fit that first episode and nothing else.
Does it fit these first 7
Absolutely
episodes?
Not, and let alone whatever's going to come. I'd like to think that what I ended up with and what everybody approved works quite well, but well, we can talk about that in a sec, but this first theme, and maybe I'll put it in somewhere, like after Alex edits this and send it back, I'll put it in maybe right now and you can hear it. But that was cool, and like if you listen to the guitars, I did a whole bunch of takes. That was a style of guitar I didn't know. I'd never learned that before. I did a whole bunch of takes. I had my roommate at the time try it a few times because he's a lot more familiar with that style. When we messed with some instrumentation of it.
So let's really, I guess, jump back to... Wait, we didn't finish talking about your week. So what is your week? Finally, let's let's nip this in the bud, put it to rest. What is your week like?
Well, that's actually a question I don't even know right now. Before, up until this point, because I just moved, basically, my past few weeks have been unpacking and figuring stuff out. And
Ideally.
At first it was, I had school and work, finished school, so I'm not doing that anymore by the time we started this, worked a whole bunch, and then worked on this. It was really just work and this. Now I need to find a job because I just moved and I couldn't still do that one. And I want to go back to get like certifications and stuff school-wise. But from a production for this, really it's just we try and record on Wednesdays, and because that was just a time that works for all of us. And then we all record, and then everybody exports their audio, puts it on a Google Drive folder. I download it, and I try and, depending on, I haven't for the last few because they've been just so long, but I'll try and, not the night of, but the day after, for whichever is the next episode. Like, if the beginning of the amount of time I have to work on an episode, I try and have the editing, like without any music, finished within 24 hours. So in this case, I'm actually probably going to finish the editing for episode 7 more than a week before it comes out, right? Because
and usually we want to record this stuff like well in advance because we want to make sure that we're all right. It's done, and we're working on something else before the deadline even comes in. Because that way you keep yourself in a safe place. And even that's I guess there's a little bit more to that, but I can
we can talk about that.
Finished.
But yeah, so I'll have that. And a pretty like a rough draft. Often I'll upload it to a drive, so as like episode 4 rough cut or whatever, so everybody can listen to it. Which I assume they never do, but whatever, it's just there. And that's just like no music or anything, or sometimes it'll be intro.
I have had little time to actually listen
and I understand because you
don't.
I
feel really bad.
That's something that like it'd be worth listening to the finished episodes over again if you can, which.
I actually did recently listen to episode 5.
Yeah, I see. Again. Well, that probably also because it's fun to listen to and it's the shortest. But
yeah, I'm trying to go back and listen to things and like review my notes.
For continuity.
I'll explain what that means.
And I guess that's if you're ever listening and think like I'm more on top of things that happened. That's because I've heard them 7 times. So, and maybe Stewart will know what's going on more because he's editing after this if this works out. But yeah, so I'll edit that, and then from that point, I'll figure out, all right, what parts of this need music, right? Kind of the default that we've settled on, and I'm going to experiment with how much I like this, was have, like, battle themes, like battles and significant moments, right? So episode 4 showed why the battle theme is either difficult or bad, right? Because, like, those were so long, and there's only so much music I could write for those.
Do we keep it generic to specific moods, or do we keep it like for example, there's let me see, what is the name of it? Final Fantasy 15 and 14 both have very significant battle themes for the more elaborate boss fights, what I would consider god tier boss fights. And I like this term a lot. This is a term I've never heard anywhere. I'm just going to use it forever now. Or Titan tier. It's where it's like the boss itself is so overpowering, both in its size, scale, and its omnipotence, that the idea of fighting it is almost completely insane. I mean,
what's it? The classic JRPG, like the last boss is either your dad or God, right? So when you fight God, you need music that fits. And
isn't God everyone's dad?
Well, our father, right? But so you kill God and stuff, and you need music that fits that. And obviously we haven't, we don't want to get into that problem of escalation, but you still kind of get into, you want these fights to...
Omnis Lacrima, specifically. Final Fantasy 15. Lacrima. Track 52 on the original soundtrack limited edition for Final Fantasy 15. Omnis Lacrima plays every time you fight what I would consider God tier or Titan tier bosses. And I think that consistency is important because it sets a certain feeling for music, but at the same time, specific themes for bosses and specific themes for fights is also super important because it also sets a tone of recognizing the importance of that fight. For example, specifically every Aeon fight in 15 also comes with a specific Aeon
Like there's
theme
a Leviathan
for
theme
that
and a Titan theme and
there an Ifrit theme and Ramu theme for that mission, because you don't actually, I don't think, fight Ramu.
okay, I actually haven't played it myself, but
Yeah. But there are specific themes for everything, for every boss, because they matter. And I guess you could call them because of that character themes, but at the same time, they're not exactly character themes.
and that's also actually kind of coming back to I mentioned briefly the way, rather than keeping the same battle theme for everything, I want to write battle themes in similar fashions that contain the melodic information that is relevant to the particular arc we're in.
Exactly. So it should also feel there are different ways to unify the way things sound, and that's one of them. The other one is, I guess, just like you have a main battle motive or motif, or
You just call that a theme.
Okay, just making. I wasn't sure
that's
which
a
one.
fair question. So yes, a battle theme.
Yeah, and that can be woven in with different instruments and things like that. Like if you're fighting things in a swamp and you're fighting things in a desert, they might sound totally different, but the music is still underneath the same. The melody is still the same.
And that was something I wanted to fight to kind of like in a way avoid, because that, even if it I spend a whole
feels lazy.
Yeah, it does feel lazy, and it doesn't like there's something, and you can definitely hear it in the puzzle theme. I guess at this point I'm going to try and do it. I'll see if I get it with the ghoul fight theme, where I try and weave in like there are conscious decisions with certain things. Like for instance, the main theme, the piano theme, is in 3/4 as opposed to 4/4. Common time, it's in 3/4. That wasn't just because I like the sound of 3/4. I love the sound of 3/4 in the Dorian key or Dorian mode, which that song is in. Well, minor with some Dorian bits, but I wrote in 3/4 because there's three of us. We're the trident, right? So there was that thought process. For the puzzle theme, I brought in elements of, if you listen to it, it's based on motives from the main theme, but it's in 4/4 because we're solving a puzzle, and that's more logical, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's a little more like structured.
Yeah, exactly. Structured is exactly the word. But then there's also things like I put little bits of chromaticism in the middle that are supposed to represent, because chromaticism is in a particular interpretation, the defiance of the pattern that you're expecting, and adding that in, I kind of interpret it as the point where you have all the information of a puzzle, but there's that misunderstanding between resolving it. And that's how that piece came to be.
The idea is that like there's a lot of complication and a lot of thought that goes into a lot of these pieces.
Yeah, the long TLDR. I think about a lot of shit. It's
and it's kind of like, I think my hope is that when we finish season one will have a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Like we'll have like, here is the soundtrack that is season 1, and maybe that's where the cover banner will be used.
Yeah, that'd be
just
cool
like
as
the
shit.
Arcane.
And then I'll have a portfolio.
On our YouTube channel, we'll have like, here's the episodes, here's the soundtrack, so you can re-experience the feeling of season 1 without actually having to listen to all of season 1.
Maybe we'll put it on Bandcamp. Who knows?
That's true. Yeah, and that would.
I'm putting it on. Okay, I'm declaring it right now. When we are done with season 1, it's going on Bandcamp. We're getting.
That's fine. And yeah, we could charge for it,
yeah,
like $1 or $2, and then I'll give them higher quality. Yeah, because like, I mean, we need money, obviously, but like also it helps support what we do to just be able to like say like, hey, is this good? Yeah, here's $1 for it. Because Chris spends a lot of time with music,
so
and I think he deserves that.
God, I spend more time so far on this podcast. I spend more time than a full-time job on this podcast.
I think that it's fair to say you probably do the most work because of your combined jobs.
Yeah, because I'm doing the two. If I did just the music, I would like to spend that amount of time on just the music. If I could spend that amount of time on just the music, all of it would sound as good as that one.
And that's why when you approached me with this, did we ever talk about we've never talked on the podcast about like how you approached me with this?
I don't think we did. You briefly mentioned it in episode 1, but we didn't really talk about it in depth or clarity.
Yeah. So yeah, Chris wanted to he wanted to write music for a D&D campaign. He wanted to write music for a D&D project of some kind. I am interested in getting more experience as a writer and as a storyteller.
Yeah, you'd actually brought it up at one point, like way, way long ago. Oh, would you be interested? Just as an offshoot, and then never did it because you didn't want to edit. And I was like, yeah, writing music for a D&D campaign would be fun as shit. But continue.
Yeah. So the sort of condition was that I would not be editing it if I did this project. And I'm still holding to that because I still would not have time to do it.
Now we're kindred spirits. It sucks. I mean, it's cool. It's a cool, interesting, almost artistic process, like we were saying, but it's a lot of work.
But it's super draining. It's honestly, I think, for me, and I'm assuming for you too, it is one of the most draining parts of the entire process because it is the least part of what you and I are coming to expect from this sort of project.
Yeah, and it's for me. It's like if I didn't have to worry about the music, it is cool because it is really part of the creative process. You're sculpting. You're taking this like raw material, like a chunk of marble, and you're cutting it down and removing that form of subtractive creation where you're making it better by removing and cutting, like carving or sculpting, I think is the best example of. And that is in itself, like I could even listen to these dry episodes, I'll call them, without any of the music and think, okay, I took what we are, our conversation, our D&D session, and I made it into an episode, and that's cool and rewarding, but it's not music. I mean, it is like, organized sounds, but it's not composing in the way that I wanted to approach this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the long and short of it is just that, like, it's the most difficult in terms of time consuming part of the process.
Tedious, I would say.
Tedious. Yeah, that's the best word for it. Cause I mean, there's not a lot. I wouldn't say that music and writing aren't time consuming as hell. But yeah, so that was kind of the condition, and I'm glad that we're this far in. And I guess every waking moment, I'm worried that at some point we're just gonna close it down, shut it down, because that would make it really tragic.
Yeah, because there's so much stuff that should happen. There's I'm finally getting into that point where I'm really feeling the music, that writing for it, and having that cut short would be devastating.
And I'm also getting the characters at the same time, and I'm starting to get you guys, and it kind of sucks. I feel bad because I've like I said, I've played with Stewart a lot, and Stewart is not a puzzle person. He's not he doesn't like those kind of problems. They just don't fit him.
Yeah.
Yet he is the character I pick on the most when it comes to puzzles. Every single time.
I mean, he figured out that the one in episode 7. Actually, I don't confirm that. I'm pretty sure he was the one that figured it out. The the orb puzzle. I think that was him. But
yeah, I think so. That was another thing I wanted to talk about. So, when it comes to puzzles in D&D, most DMs write half, take half, or some variation of that. That's pretty much what I do with a lot of these puzzles because I need to make sure they actually work. Because if not, it's crazy difficult and insane, and then I wonder if I was just bad at writing them.
Because you can't really play test them.
No, I cannot. I have, and that's the thing. A lot of the story elements that I have to write are not play testable either. I can't view or test them with anyone because I don't have a person that I can just be like, does this sound good to you? Does the story idea sound good to you? That sort of thing.
That's even something you're saying. You can talk to James and Angel, but it's talking to them about certain points is different than having people play test it.
Yeah, and even then, they also listen to the project. They're not just like, hey, I'm interested in helping out or that sort of thing. They're not an editor of any kind. That's why in a lot of projects you have an editor to work with.
Yeah.
Because it's they read through your rough drafts, or you tell them things, and they tell you what they think about the way that things are going.
Yeah,
the players might find this difficult. The audience might find this difficult. This is too complicated. This could be cut down. This should be cut down. Why isn't this going here? Why isn't this going away from here? Why is this character back? Why isn't this character back? It's been a while. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Those are questions that I need to be asked, but at the same time, I have no one who can actually ask those questions with a clear understanding of the story. In order to properly assess that.
And that's such a responsibility to have to remember to ask yourself those questions without the reminder.
Yeah.
It's like waking up without an alarm clock.
Yeah, for clarification's sake, I think let me check right now. In terms of writing for this podcast, I have 40 pages of notes.
Christ.
And that is not including anything that is past episode 7 yet. And it's not including certain character bios that I haven't written yet. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this. From a creative perspective, I've been given a lot of really cool freedom, and it's really nice to be able to be in charge of a project like this. And I'm blessed that I have the people that I do working on it with me. And And yeah, I wanted to have this sort of like little one shot that's turning out a lot longer than I thought it would be, with Chris to talk about these sort of things. And I forgive me if they're a bit rambly, but I wanted you guys to know what we think.
It also,
and what we're,
it's nice to
just
get it out, because there's, like you're saying, there's so much, and it's nice to talk about it.
Anyway, maybe there will be another one of these in the future. We might do this after another arc or something.
But we're not going to use them as a crutch. We're not going to do too many.
No, but there's just a lot to talk about. There's a lot of like adventures, discussions that I would like to have. But yeah, until next time, guys. I've been Adam, your DM,
and I've been Chris, your composer.
Thank you so much, Chris, for joining me. Hopefully, next episode will be one that everyone enjoys. I hope you enjoyed Ambrosia's Castle and the not so murder mystery dinner. We'll see what happens to Orgloff and the gang in episode 8. Hope that you guys enjoy it as much as I am looking forward to writing it. Until next time.